Apparently, about 2 weeks into the apocalypse, everybody loses their mind. Good to know. It's the mid-season finale of Fear the Walking Dead. Season 2, Episode 7. Shiva. Alright, spoilers ahead, just so you've been warned. Alright, I'm going to start off with this review with a little bit of a note. That there was a point about a third, maybe halfway through this episode where Daniel was losing his mind. We had the creepy locals dragging him. We had Nick yelling at his mom about, "I can't talk to you this way." That everything seemed to devolve into a bit of a B-movie trope. And I have to admit, it kind of pulled me away from this episode. I mean, there were some nice sections in this, but this episode really, I think, more than anything else, illustrates one of the complaints that I have had about this show. And that is, there seems to be this constant urge to get to a point without having a real logical progression of how you get there. And I'll try and hit that periodically through this when I'm hitting the specific points. But there was a lot that happened in this episode and a lot of just weird, twisty directions that came out of nowhere. And I'm not really sure where they're expecting to go or how to set things up. But let's try and get down into some specifics with this. I'm going to start this off with Travis and Chris. So as things started off, Travis is looking for Chris, runs into Alicia, who tells him all about the waking up and finding Chris there with a knife thing. And that really sends Travis off to find Chris. Chris is his son. That's his obligation that he has to do. He is worried about him. And there's a lot of good reasons to be worried about Chris. And this sets off, a day. The whole episode itself seems to take place in the space of a day, because we have the evening shot where Strand shoots Thomas and Celia comes in and goes all nuts and stuff, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. And then she's given him 1 day to bury Thomas and then go. And everything else ends at that day. So this all takes place within about a 24-hour period or so. And that's kind of important to note for some of the comments that I'm going to make afterwards. So Travis is off, running down Chris, runs into the guy in the little shanty town there. And, a lot of little questions about this. One, what happened to Travis's feet? Is it just because of the cowboy boots? But those were all torn up, and I don't remember any injury that happened to him beforehand that would explain that. So that was all really kind of odd and intense. I mean, he was walking, and then he was starting to fall down, and then he pulled off his shoes, and it's all bloody and cut up, and I don't know where his injuries came from. And then a nice little moment with him and the other guy, though again, throughout that discussion, he seems to keep just hitting on the point, "I'm looking for my son." Now, that's reasonable to ask once or twice, but he just keeps pushing it. And then we do find that eventually that Chris is actually, in the back room holding this guy's son hostage to try and get rid of his father, which again is just, I understand Chris going through some issues, but he seems to have, at this point, really stepped into psycho crazy town. I'm not only holding this guy's office, but then pointing the gun at his dad, then his dad knocks it away and he chases him down, and he pulls his dad's knife out and starts cutting it, trying to cut at him. It was all just very intense. And again, I understand that Chris is doing a kind of a spiral down and to worry, but none of this is any discussion of, I wasn't trying to do this. There was no defense of his position, merely acceptance that, from Chris's standpoint, there was no, statement of why he was doing anything, any defense of his choices, where he's going through, simply that acceptance that I am a monster. Which again, just all seemed very quick and rushed and extreme in a reaction to handle with his father, who really has tried to be only supportive. So, when Nick does find him, when Nick does run into Travis towards the end, that was the one thing that I did appreciate, was when Travis said, look, I can't come back because Chris can't come back and I can't leave Chris. He's my son. He's the only one that Chris has left at. So I didn't really see any of that as an abandonment of Maddie or any of the other kids. I think that he wants to be with them, but he has a choice. He can't bring Chris back. He knows he can't bring Chris back. Chris is, halfway to Crazy Town, if not further. But he can't just abandon him out in Mexico by himself in the zombie apocalypse. So I did appreciate that whole statement, how he spoke with Nick, and that kind of just straightforward. Look, he can't go back. So I can't go back. I owe it to him. He's my son. And of course, putting a lot of pressure on Nick then, saying is just tell Maddie that you never found me. And we just disappeared off into the desert. That's kind of a bit much, and I'm sure that's going to come back and bite him later on down the road. But that is the one thing in that sequence that I did appreciate that is a good father reaction is, I can't leave. I have to be with him. But Chris's whole bit seemed really extreme, and even Travis's, again, with the whole foot thing and then arguing with the guy about where his son is, and just all of that seemed odd, especially just tackling the guy, your son's in there and he's holding my kid hostage. Okay, I'm going to tackle you through the door. I mean, that seemed a little extreme. Just a lot of kind of odd, weird choices to bring them to this point where Travis and Chris are separated from the rest of the group and are off wandering in the Baja Desert. Then we have Daniel, who has started to hear voices, and with the visions, so what we find out through this is the kid that he had seen in that little flashback moment was apparently him. And a lot of this kind of trauma that he's going through is reflecting back to those early times where he was kind of turned into a little monster himself. But again, it's that extremity. It's like a day or so before he was hearing some voices, and at this point he has completely succumbed into madness. Now, when Celia is speaking with him, when Daniel is later on tied up to the chair, there seems to be some relation, some notice that Daniel's probably dying, that this is possibly a sign of some internal brain injury, aneurysm or something like that, that's starting to cause the hallucinations and things like that. That I can go with. They don't really explain much. There's not really, outside of that comment, there's not really much of a statement, so it seems kind of a reach, but that kind of injury, I can understand that this is something that is just popping up, and time-wise, it's just coincidental. Because other than that, again, this is all over day. They just got here like the day before. There's that total just quick descent into madness and seeing things. I mean, when he's grabbing at Ophelia saying, come on, your mother's waiting for us up at the gate, we've got to go. Yeah, I understand that Daniel's freaking out about the dead being, saved in the wine cellar. Sure, that makes total sense. But that quick descent into madness just seemed really extreme. Additionally, then you've got Celia's goons, the locals, the workers on the ranch that are just grabbing at him. There's that whole cult feeling that was going on. And this is what I'm saying. It was about then where I was starting to get this whole B-movie feel going on. So I don't know if Ruben Blades just kind of had it with the show, or they figured they needed to kind of separate things out, and we need to kill another character off to keep this momentum going. But again, that just whole sequence was really weird. Now, the one thing I did like when he is talking with the ghost of his ex-wife is, apparently, in his sleep at night, she would tell him all the stories, and that was sort of his mental release, that sort of quest for forgiveness, the way that he was able to deal with all of these traumas. But I did like, as they're reflecting back to that first kill that he had to do, the image of him as a children pulling the gun on the guy that's in that river of bodies, which was really gross. Though, interesting shot into what the zombie apocalypse would look like. I did appreciate the dead wife's, the ghost wife's comments of that the first victim was him. And that's often stuff that is forgotten. And I just thought that was a nice moment, that of all the trauma that he has gone through, reflecting back to the first kill and everything that has happened after that, the reality is that the first victim was him as a child, his innocence, and all that. I liked that little point in the midst of all of this, which I thought was a great point. But still, very all weird. And then the following into the zombie basement with the gasoline, and then it's just kind of a weird descent for Daniel. I'm bummed that that's the last we're going to see of Ruben Blades, most likely. I don't think how he could have gotten out of that, but just a real quick kind of get him out of the picture so Ophelia's by herself now, I guess. Now, as for Maddie and Nick and Strand and Celia and the rest of the group, all right. Starting things off with Strand shooting Thomas and everybody running in. Celia showing herself to be nutcase, which just progressively throughout this episode is Celia backing up the assumption that she is crazy, as Nick says later on. She's not viewing the apocalypse as the end. This for her is a rebirth, the sign of life eternal coming. So I don't know, life eternal as a zombie, that's not really the way that I would like to go. It's not the way that I saw it, but hey, what do I know? And her reluctance, obviously, that shows why she was so mad at Strand, is by shooting Thomas in the head, that he can't be reborn and have his life eternal, and that's her whole problem. I did like Maddie referring to Strand as her friend. There's a point that he throws back at her a little bit later on is, we were helping each other out. We helped each other get to where we needed to go. Let's not confuse this with something as vaguely defined as friendship. But that's really what she is saying. And I like that is an acceptance point with all that they've gone through. The connection that Maddie and Strand do have is one of it's friendship. It's, sure, originated out of necessity, but they are two very similar characters. So I did like that. Why Nick gets really connected with Celia, he can connect with people. That's part of his little gift with everything that he has gone through. But his acceptance of Celia's point of view, that everybody is just, they're coming back to life, I don't really get that. I get his discussion and point that he said with Maddie, that he, this is a world that he can inhabit. He can walk with them. He can be untouched. Little bit of madness. You don't want to take anything too, you don't want to get too self-confident in these situations. But it's a good character-defining moment with him, point that he is accepting that is his place in this new world. I like that. Why he has really grabbed onto Celia's idea suddenly versus a mom, again, he met her yesterday. It was odd. His bit of just, in the midst of discussion, just covering himself with blood, going down to the boat and pulling back Luis's dead zombie body as a present for Celia. Also weird. One, happens very quick. Two, did they just leave Luis tied up on the boat? I know that's where he died, but they didn't pull him off. They just left him there. Was he wandering around the boat? Was he tied up? I don't know. Again, weird stuff. And Maddie, now I did like at the first of the episode, Maddie going up to Alicia and Nick and just saying, okay, look, get supplies, be quiet about it. We can't stay here. These people aren't our friends. Sounding a lot like Daniel right there. And then we have Maddie's final little discussion with Celia, who's telling her to get away from the sun. You don't understand, back and forth. And I love how Maddie's able to switch. Okay, well then I want to understand. So Celia's big mistake. Let's take her down and show her the zombie thing. Maddie, no problem. Slowly backing up and shutting the door behind her and locking Celia inside with the zombies. Didn't pause, didn't blink, had no problem with that. I did kind of appreciate Celia's subtle acceptance of that. What was Maddie's plan after that? Was she just going to stay there and hope nobody noticed? Just go down, oh, she must have died. Well, we'll just let you stay. Because she didn't really do anything after that, where she's still trying to gather supplies and maybe we should get out of here now and this will end you and then I can get Nick. I don't really know what her plan was. Now, there wasn't a whole lot of time after that before Daniel did his barbecue bit, But if you noticed, and you probably did if you were looking the same way that I did, we never saw Celia in the basement again. After Daniel came down with the gasoline to set everybody on fire, we did not see Celia in the basement. So did she have another key and just let herself out? Was there another way? Or was she that group, but what Daniel was seeing in there were not, the dead, the recent dead, the zombies, but the faces of all the people that he had killed. Everybody looked kind of clean when Daniel was down there and he finally said his final goodbye to the wife and set the barbecue going. But they didn't look the same as the creatures that were eating all the dog meat and stuff when Celia had taken Maddie down. So I'm not sure if these were zombie victims that he was seeing. I think it was more like the faces of the people that he had killed, the bodies that are haunting him. I'm not really sure if we are going to see Celia again. But the big point that I'm hitting with all of this is that place went up like it was already doused with gasoline. I mean, he lit that fire. Wine cellar. Wine is not that flammable as far as I know. Alcohol content isn't that high. A lot of wood barrels and things. So, yes, I can get the flammability. But he lit that, and literally the next shot we see is Strand getting the truck with the reflections of the fire turning. Then Nick walks down, and the whole complex is on fire. And then we have Maddie running, looking, trying to find Daniel real quick. That sequence went so fast. Nobody did seem to have time to react. So it was either this place was designed to just go up in flames in a heartbeat, or again, they're pushing things. That's why I'm saying the problem that I have with the show is they seem to want to be getting to the end. Let's burn this place down and separate everybody. So we'll just have all of the drama, and then we'll move through those last 3 steps like that. That's one of the issues. Now we do end off with Nick leaves. He's off on his own. Travis and Chris are out on their own, and then we have Strand, Maddie, Alicia, and Ophelia together, possibly heading to the boat. We don't know yet. They were just driving off in their truck. So we've got 3 different groups. As the episode ends, we have those 3 different groups going on, which is probably going to be a lot of the drama that's going to happen when we come back in August for the second half of the season. But it really seemed like they were pushing to get to that point, and they made any quick choices they needed in order to get that separation. Even as Nick came up afterwards and the place is burning down, it's not really a question to his mom, not even a real discussion like that, just the acceptance, oh, Celia was right, we destroy everything we touch. Bye, Mom. I don't know. I mean, I get that Nick's going through some things, but again, all of this trauma seems to happen. I mean, this whole season, first half of the season takes place in like 4 or 5 days? Again, we're 2 weeks into the apocalypse. They just got here yesterday. And Nick walks in the door, falls in love with the new mom, lets it burn down, walks away from her family. I get Travis and Chris leaving. Chris has gone nuts. Travis has to stay with him. I get that. But everybody else seems to be moving towards a goal without making sense of the journey of why they're getting there. Anyway, that's it. It's the mid-season break now. We're not going to be back here until August. So we've got some time, and hopefully they'll start to pick things up. Again, I like the show. I like the concept. I like where they're starting from. I just think they're trying to force ideas and moments in without really making a logical progression. Almost like they're pushing everything faster than they need to, and they're trying to get to points that shouldn't happen until further on down the road so they can just show stuff early. I'm not sure what their plan is with this, but it keeps jarring me out of the reality of the world that they're putting things in, and I hope that they clean it up. I like the show. I like the people in it. I like a lot of the ideas. Nick is awesome. Treat the characters better. That's all I ask. Anyway, I'm going to wrap things up for today. Hope that you enjoyed the mid-season finale. Hope that you are looking forward to when it comes back in August. Like I said, we'll do that, then we'll finish up the end of the season 2, and then we'll go right back into the next season of Walking Dead. So we get a little summer break, and then we get zombies through Christmas. So that should be fun. Anyway, if you did like this review, please hit that like button. Feel free to hit the subscribe button over here in red. Comments in the section below, always appreciated. Did you like it? Are you still with the show? Or are there things that are bothering you? Let me know. Let's have a little chat. We'll continue that on. You can reach me on Twitter. I'm at Darren Jakes. Other than that, I am D. And we are breaking for the summer. We are still doing Game of Thrones. That will be back here on Mondays also. But that's going to be the only one for the next few weeks. We are going into, for the summer, I'm definitely going to do Mr. Robot. That may be the only thing that I do. Game of Thrones is going in through the end of June. If something else comes up, I'll throw that in, and I'll also try and throw out a few more videos just in through the summer to let you know that I'm still alive and doing things. Anyway, I hope you all are doing well. I'm D, and I am out of here. You guys take care. See you next time. Bye-bye.